Why in the world is Bitcoin going down? I have seen way too many people lately confused about why in the world has Bitcoin gone down a whopping 10% in 2 days. All over social media, there are many people saying things like, Bitcoin will never trade below 110,000 ever again, mark my words. Only for the next day, it literally has gone down, and now we are officially 20% down from the all-time high, pushing into 99,000. Now, if you've been following me, I have been saying that we are at the top. We are at the top. We're going down for months now. And in fact, I've had this idea for years. And it's this that I want to show you all right now. What you're looking at is a chart dividing up Bitcoin based on halvings. And this is really important because the halvings are the reason for Bitcoin's cycle. And a lot of people have been claiming recently that, oh, everything is different. This time is different because now there's ETFs. Now there's all these big institutions in here. Guys, it's still Bitcoin. It is still the halving. It still will forever do what Bitcoin does. It might be less over the years, but Bitcoin is not as widely adopted as people think. So anyway, the Bitcoin halving is so important, it is so critical that Binance used to have a halving countdown on their website, but they have since removed it, and this only happened recently in the last year. So now we have to go to all these other websites, which do have countdowns, and they're all relatively similar. The point is that sometime in late March, early April, and we're about 39-40% of the way through the halving. Now, this is when we have our peaks, but my point is that Binance knows this. All of the big major traders know how Bitcoin works. We all understand the cycle. We all know that the cycle will continue to cycle. And the returns have been less every single cycle. And so what they are doing now is trying to manipulate people by pushing propaganda, claiming that Bitcoin will just continue to go up forever and you should totally buy right now. Now, I am absolutely appalled because Look at this. You just browse X and it is post after post talking about how surprised they are that Bitcoin is going down. There are people who don't want this to happen. There are people who are surprised and are absolutely waiting for a continued pump. It's this garbage of like HODL, paper hands, like what is this nonsense? I am so baffled by it. So we need to talk about what actually is going on right now. So I have been working on this chart for years, basically documenting every single cycle. So in here we have the first Bitcoin cycle ever. We start off, it travels for some time, and then we have this huge spike upward, and then we have a sell-off, followed by a rally up into the halving. Now, this kind of pattern has repeated every single cycle. And again, if you're not cluing into this at this point, you have to. So we have a rally up after a period of time, sell off, and then rally up into the halving. Okay, same thing, rally up, sell off, rally into the halving. You'll notice that as time goes on, these rallies will happen kind of earlier, but never progress beyond the all-time high. And I do want to say that as time goes on, as there are more halvings and as more people are into Bitcoin, we will see a gradual reduction of the volatility, but this pattern is still going to persist. Okay, so then we had just last cycle, again, we start seeing that reduced volatility, but again, a rally up, sell off, rally into the halving. Now, this time we actually did see a breaking of the all-time high, and I do have to talk about that because that is due to inflation, but I'm going to get to that later. Okay, and then finally we're in the current cycle, and again, like we're just seeing the exact same thing play out. We shouldn't be surprised by this at all. And in fact, what we can do is actually overlay all of these different runs over the current run. And it's a little bit jumbled, but there is some sort of clear pattern going on here. Bitcoin's price is due for some sort of retracement, and this is probably super clear for everyone. I hope that everyone can already pick up on this pattern. It's been going on for years, and it has nothing to do with Bitcoin hitting like 125,000. Like that didn't cause the end of the run. It's not even caused by geopolitical events. Those things do matter, and they might matter more in the future, but guys, this is the Bitcoin halving. Like, look at every single halving overlaid over one another. it does the same thing. We have a rally up, rally down, rally back up into the halving, and then we'll have a even higher high in the future. But it's just not that complex. And you guys have to stay alert so that people don't fool you right now. Bitcoin is due for a retrace, right? And usually the retraces are pretty gnarly. They're like 80, 70%. Even just this last cycle, we retraced, 76%? And then before then, it was in the 80s. So like if you're still holding on to your Bitcoin holdings, like it's gonna be rough for you here in the future. All right, but I wanna pick up on the key here. Like this is the whole point of the video, is Bitcoin isn't hitting price targets on the horizontal. Like we aren't looking for like, oh, you hit this level, so now we're gonna retrace, and we hit this level here, so then we're gonna shoot up to 180 at some point. Guys, no, it is time based. Bitcoin progresses through the halving, and it travels from halving to halving. And along that way, it hits these marks where when it progresses this percentage of the way through, we typically have a peak. When we progress this percentage of the way through, we typically bottom. And then as we get to 100%, we have a retrace, right? And this is so consistent, and it is not based on a 4-year cycle, quote unquote. Like it has nothing to do with the geopolitics. It is the Bitcoin halving. This is halving to halving, which changes. It's not 4 years every time. And if anything, actually, it has been increasing over the years. For instance, the first halving was only 3 years long. Then it increased to 3 years, 7 months, 3 years, 10 months, and now we're at 4 years. And this time, we're also looking at close to 4 years here. So this isn't super important. It has to do with the hash rate. As the hash rate gets more complicated over time, it will kind of take longer, but there's more people mining, so that's not really that important. What we need to know, though, is when do we sell? Because we're not looking for a price target. If you were waiting for 100,000 last time, you never would have sold. And like, yeah, you can just hold on until the next cycle, but like you are missing out on taking all of your gains and then duplicating them by about 5 times going into the next cycle, right? That's how you actually are going to make money using Bitcoin. So if we go back and we look at the period during the cycle that is the most lucrative to sell, it is usually between 1 year and 1.5 years into that cycle. And that's been pretty typical every time. I kind of have to squeeze the charts here a little bit, but again, year, 7 months, that was the peak in 2017, year and 7 months. And this just kind of repeats for every single cycle. So again, not that interesting, but what's more interesting is if we take a look at what percentage of the way through the halving that the peak happened. The first halving, it happened 54% of the way through. After that, it was about 30% of the way through, 37, 36, and I am predicting it is also about 36 of the way through, which definitely comes out super accurate, if indeed this is the top. So what I called about 2 years ago in this area, I called that we were going to have a rally up. I did not expect it to be so volatile, and I predicted it would be in this zone that we would have the top. Now, I actually wasn't that far off. You know, if you sold in this zone, like you would have been cashing in on higher than the current price right now. And in fact, toward the end of this zone is really when we had the peak. But I claimed a time period in which you should be selling Bitcoin, not necessarily a price target, although I did try to predict a target, and originally I had this as 110, which we did hit right about here. So that feels pretty close, but again, you don't want to use price targets, you want to use price periods, and I actually think this will be a shorter period over here now that we've looked at some of the other halvings overlaid. I really deeply suspect in this time period we will be having the bottom, and I'm not quite sure how low it will go. Okay, and just again to clarify, like if you're still convinced that geopolitics has more of a effect on Bitcoin's price, this is what the halving does. Essentially, people who mine get a reward. They get that reward for mining. happen. They have to invest thousands and thousands and even millions of dollars into all of these mining institutions where they are literally mining Bitcoin. So they have costs to recuperate, they have staffing, they have all sorts of costs and like electricity, and like they are sunk into this and they need to get that recouped. So what do they do with the Bitcoin that they earn? Well, they have to sell it at a price that is lucrative. So they are constantly trying to push up the price over time. Every cycle, the number of Bitcoin rewards given for mining goes down. This makes it less lucrative. You know, you are literally earning half. Imagine if your paycheck got cut in half. You would not want to work anymore. But for some of these mining institutions, they have such a ridiculous, ludicrous amount of infrastructure that it is worth it for them to continue mining. So essentially what happens is over time, there will be less and less miners because the rewards are smaller and smaller. Now, as we know with supply and demand, this point moves down, which causes the price to skyrocket. It has to find an equilibrium. Here's a good picture of it. So this is called the deficit line here. And when we move the quantity or the supply down and we get closer to zero, we have this spread now. The quantity of Bitcoin being sold goes down, but the demand doesn't change. People are still having to use Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin, transfer Bitcoin, trade Bitcoin. And so this supply curve actually has to get shifted upward in order to maintain equilibrium. And that difference between this point here and this point here is the profitability of a market, you know, and typically how real supply and demand curves look is more exponential, which is why we've had such exponential curves in the past when the quantity of Bitcoin being mined has changed. So you might think, okay, so sure, I get it. People are mining Bitcoin, but like, why would that have an effect on the market? And it's because, again, like I said, these miners have a vested interest. They have to recoup their costs. They're not able to mine and just hold on to it forever. They have to sell part of their profits in order to recoup all of these costs. So there is a constant flooding of Bitcoin on the market, and next halving, it gets cut in half. I don't want to talk about this too much because it can get too technical, but the point is when the supply goes down, the price has to go up. And I know that people are trading it, buying it, and selling it, but these miners really do have a huge impact on the market, and they still have a huge impact. Like, it really is exclusively miners who cause all of these ups and down swings in Bitcoin's price. Okay, so what does that mean for us? Well, it means that we know that every halving, there's going to be a supply shock that cataclysmically affects the price. Because again, even if you're like, oh no, the Bitcoin halving, like it's going to be less and less important as time goes on and, you know, there's more people in it. We still had a rally of, almost 700%. I'm sorry, but like what other market can you get that in? I think you should stop complaining about that because these are ludicrous gains. And currently with the price going down, like this is only good news for us. This is only good news because the sooner this happens, the sooner we can keep buying Bitcoin and holding on to it for the next rally. So I have been waiting to make a video like this for a long time. I need to do. I have so much more to say. I am going to put this all on my website here soon. I've been meaning to throw this onto like some of my research pages. I do have research on my website about some of my AI models, which you can check out, but I'm going to add a Bitcoin cycle page where I talk about the research regarding the cycle, the timing of everything, and basically how far along are we? Because, you know, we have a period to go before we hit our bottoms, but man, I was just absolutely shocked and a little bit outraged at just how many people, are doing this. Literally this. I just reloaded the page. This is ludicrous though. But like there are people in such deep denial about this. Like, you know, this guy actually said that he snagged some sort of trade off of this, but it did not go up to 115, you know. It barely even went up to 106 after this. It just did a little bounce. And now we're down at 99,000 here. So many people are acting like this is not, oh no. Like, guys, don't let this be you. Like, you need to know what's going on. Yeah, and this guy, he's talking about there's still people bull posting, and meanwhile, it's literally going down. And again, a lot of people are chalking it up to macro. Dude, it's not macro. It's not macro. There are macro things that will affect it here, because recently, in 2020, the US government printed $12 trillion. In fact, it really is $16 trillion that flooded the market, which is up like, what is that, 4-5 times the amount. And I don't know if any of you have been around cryptocurrencies that print, but any crypto that prints is doomed to crash. And as we can see with the Terra Luna incident, man, that thing went to zero because of the printing. And again, this is a little bit deeper than we need to get into for this video, but this is what the US dollar is doing. And basically what Bitcoin is an inverse of the dollar. So if we reverse it, as they print more money, Bitcoin's price will shoot up over time. And we have printed a ludicrous amount of money that just hasn't hit the equities markets yet, and we will see the ramifications of this for probably 5 to 10 years. However, it is not going to affect Bitcoin in the next 12 months as much as the halving will. So you've got to stay safe out there. Anyway, I just wanted to make this video because the internet is full of people right now freaking out and losing their minds over this candlestick, and I have been waiting for it for months. And in fact, it really hasn't been that late either. I said back in August, right at the end of August, that Bitcoin had 2 more months to live, and it is officially 2 months later, and people are freaking out, which is what I said. So seriously, like, follow me on here, but like, you guys need to know this, and so hopefully you figured it out by now. But anyway, let me know what other topics you guys want me to cover. I have a lot of things planned. I just need to get around to it. Chat with me in the comments, join the Discord, and stay safe trading out there. I'll see you next time. Bye.